Nice. Where's my light? Seems
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to For the Minions, a weekly show. Oh shit, because Jelly's camera isn't working. Let me pop those out because they're incorrect. But yes, we are going to be talking about various third-person MOBAs, including the Paragon Remakes and Ethereal. This week, we've got some Netmarble has been advertising for Overprime, which is cool to see, and then Overprime released their Faye gameplay video. Predecessor released the Khaimera changes to Khaimera's kit, as well as the numbers for that. And then Ethereal has a new skin for Leah, which I'm very excited about because Leah's my girl. And then Fault had the new patch, and then I believe these spicy gentlemen have a few bones to pick with Strange Matter. So I'm going to save Fault for last this time because I think you guys are going to be digging in there. So I'm your host, the Mangoose. Joining me as always is Jelly Knees, but I don't know if he's there or not. I know his camera isn't working. You there, Jelly? Fuck that guy. Moving on to the Viking Jedi. How you doing, Viking?
I am super good, man. I'm fired up to do this week's episode. I do have some spicy takes for Fault, I think. But no, I hopefully coming from a good place overall. So we'll try and keep things cordial, of course, per usual. Yeah, keep it professional. You know what I mean? Because but no, I'm really excited, and I had a really good week, and so yeah. What about you? How was your week?
My truck broke down, so I've just been working on that, so that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you
Thanks
telling me
for bringing
that.
up painful memories.
Well, mostly I'm just trying to kill time until Jelly could get on, but maybe we just...
He's here! The show goes on. I don't care if Jelly's here or if he's just a series of spinning dots chasing each other through the void.
That's fair. I mean... Maybe the spinning void is better content. I don't know.
We'll if you guys don't know, the spinning void is Jelly Knees, my friend and co-host that is here almost every week. Hopefully he'll get his camera worked out, but we're going to move right into Predecessor for now. So Predecessor, they released their take on Khaimera's hero kit, and this is something we've addressed quite a few times with them. Like every time they release like a change to a hero kit, it looks just overpowered as hell, and it's starting to become something Jelly often quotes is if everybody's overpowered, then nobody's overpowered. But the latest change, even without the numbers, I'm a little concerned about, and this is with Khaimera's kit. Now, there's two changes to his kit that they made. One being his ultimate is no longer a lock-on. It's now just a point of origin AoE, so he can hit multiple people with his ultimate. I'm not too concerned about that. I think that's a great idea. What does concern me is his E, which in Paragon was simply a passive that gave him his spirit regen stacks. Now, this will heal you depending on how much spirit regen you currently have, like just an instantaneous heal. But even more concerning is it's a cleanse that could be activated prior to being CC'd to not get CC'd. So it's going to work quite a bit like
he blue screened.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So it's going to look it's going to work quite a bit like Hunter's Guile did, if you guys remember that card from Predecessor. So Viking Jedi, what do you think about this Khaimera kit from Predecessor?
I mean, I'm kind of torn on it. So I'm excited that they're continuing to give us more information. I think if anything, what this will do is give them, valuable feedback from us, the community, to be able to weigh in on these exact issues. I do think that it seems like, again, on paper, that it's a bit overtuned. It's a little... Khaimera has always been, in my opinion, like the perfect noob stomper. Like he's just the guy that it seems like, especially in lower elos play or more casual play, just takes over games in all aspects. And so now being able to not only have so much sustain, have a AoE stun, have a non-locked on jump in and technically a jump out, and then CC cleanse, it seems like a lot for one of the most, aggressive junglers that can just hyper carry into the late game and become an unstoppable force. I do know in the old Paragon days, he could be countered in higher elos, with more concentrated gameplay. But I just worry about like, again, the solo queue environment of somebody with this kind of kit that's not competitive play without all the organization that's going to take place to really be able to shut him down. So yeah, it's just having a cleanse on top of all the burst damage and the sustain and just and an AoE ult now. It's nuts. So I think if they got rid of like some of the cleanse stuff, maybe, or they reworked how that works instead of giving like the heal, but I don't know, man. It just seems like a lot. Does that answer? I hope. I don't know.
It
It
does
seems like
seem
a
like a
lot.
lot. I know we Predecessor is a different game from Paragon, but we can use Paragon as an example, like
Yeah.
a previous example, because we have all played against Khaimera, and I
Hmm.
always felt he was very easy to counter higher level because people knew that all you have to do is stun him once, and then he's going to lose his spirit, regen stacks, and he's going to be an easy
Yep.
kill.
Yep.
That's not going to be possible anymore. I think you're going to have multiple forms of CC on your team to counter a good Khaimera.
Hmm.
As a medkit said in chat, this does add a little bit to his skill expression. You are going to have to be a skilled
Sure.
player to see or kind of instinctively know that CC is coming and activate that E at the correct moment. Because like Hunter's Guile, I keep referring to Hunter's Guile. You had to know when to hit that to not be CC'd. It didn't just like if you are stunned, you can't just hit E and walk out.
Hmm.
If you're slowed, you can hit E and walk out. I also wonder too if this is going to affect any sort of health regen debuff. I'm not sure what they call it in Predecessor.
Oh,
But usually, like I know Fault calls it trauma. Some of them call it wither or something like that. But
grievous wounds is another one.
yes,
Yeah.
any kind of effect that um, nullifies a bit of his self healing. I wonder if he'll
Right.
be able to cleanse that if it's something that it applies on hit.
That would be pretty wild, I think, if that's the case. So I still kind of am going to lean towards that, like depending on how long it lasts for when he pops it, right? I would imagine it's going to have like a shield or something around him that lets people know that he's basically got like a nullifying effect on him. I would be curious if it's still in low elo. If when any Kai that knows that he's going to jump in, people are going to try and CC him, that he just pops it as part of his I'm going all in kit. You know what
His
I mean?
rotation.
Yeah. Now, granted, again, like you mentioned, in higher elo, it's going to be a skill expression. I kind of think of like there's a few other champions in like League of Legends that have a similar kit to it. And uh, it it usually in low elo is something that teams struggle to play around having basically a get out of jail free CC card. But in higher elos, it can be punished because you can coordinate a little bit more to work around that one button press that they have and punish the over aggression basically of being the only one jumping in possibly to a whole group of people. So I still think that at the higher end it will give really good Chimera players an opportunity to showcase skill expression while also having good counterplay. But again, for me in the lower elos, you're just giving good chimeras who are working their way up the ranks a more opportunities to hard carry games with little you know uh, uh, fallback or consequences.
Mm-hmm. Uh, JJ Dog 234, I guess JJ Dog 233 was taken.
You're so stupid.
He brings up a good point. He thought it consumes the stacks. I'm not sure if it consumes the stacks or not. I know Jelly Knees went very deep into this, and I was kind of going to rely on him, which silly me for relying on Jelly.
I know he's
Like he's
struggling.
tried. He's tried. He's like, I want to come in. I want to
He
answer
does.
this so bad.
I'm here. My camera's just acting up. But so yeah, there's nothing that directly states his stacks are consumed when he uses his E. And that I think is a big wording. I think across the board, the wording on this document that they sent out of his stats and everything is really too general to explain what the ability does and
Mm.
what the effects of said ability are. For instance, the E, right? The ability that I think everyone's really talking about right now isn't clear of whether or not he gets 1.5 times his current health regen as max health, or just 1.5 times his current health regen as just a flat heal.
Hmm.
Because so he could have 60 health regen, for instance, and that would equate to, what is that, a 90 health heal. if it's just 1.5 times his health regen.
Right.
But if it's a percent heal, if it's percent max health, like it is earlier in the ability, then it's a 90% max health heal, which is very different
Right.
numbers. So I think it needs to be worded more clearly going forward. But you guys mentioned it a little bit already. I think this ruins a lot of the counterplay of Khaimera. Especially the reason he was good in low elo but bad in higher in Paragon was that in higher elos they knew, okay, just CC Khaimera, he's done, and move on, no big deal. Now Khaimera has a way to reliably negate that, right? If he sees that you use Decker Bomb on somebody else or whatever it is, whatever the CC for your team is, the really consistent CC, he's going to be almost unstoppable at this point, because now, similar to what we've seen with Boris in Fault, you give somebody this ability to cleanse CC or become unstoppable for a period of time, and they turn into a rampaging monster. Because they can go in with it, they can get out with it, and then you add a heal on top of that. And I worry, Khaimera and Predecessor was already insane in the past tests. Khaimera was already dominating. I don't think this needed to be added. Other than maybe as a like, okay, you guys complained about how much CC Decker has, so now we're gonna give Khaimera an anti-CC, yay! Right? Like it's, I'm not saying that's the actual reasoning, but it does feel like that a little bit of like, it's okay that Decker has so much CC because we're giving potentially more people anti-CC or just making them unstoppable in general.
Right.
That makes me a little nervous going into like another test or their early access.
Another thing that sort of concerns me is in Paragon, again, they're two different games. I realize that.
Sure.
It's a direct analog. In Paragon, Kai dominated bronze, silver. Then gold, platinum, he was barely touched because everybody had learned how to play against him. However, Diamond Master, Kai kind of came back and made a pretty big comeback. Like Kai was a top hero in master level play because people had not only figured out how to play against him, but people had figured out how to defend their own Kai whenever he got in trouble and that sort of thing. So,
and health regen, the health regen he gets from his passive, is really the big problem, right? Give him a way to escape, fine, right? Give him a way to escape where he's earning 50 health back per second. That's a different issue, because all he needs is a couple seconds to then re-engage on this fight without items, without anything, just purely because he was engaged originally and got to disengage for a few seconds. Like that's all Khaimera needs in order to turn back into a fight, is that couple second window to heal up a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, again, we'll have to see. We'll have to actually see it in the gameplay how it works out. But like you said, Jelly, he was strong already. This is going to make him even stronger, and in the hands of a really good player, nigh impossible to kill. Another question I would have, another concern I had too. I didn't like the way that like they did their video, like the way it was worded, because the way it was worded made it seem like you only got health regen from hitting abilities, because they said it several times. Hitting an ability will give you health regen, and then they would be like, ambush will give you health regen. This will give you health, regen stacks. But they never mentioned basic attacks at all. And the assumption is there from Paragon players that you get the regen stacks from hitting, and that was confirmed with the document they sent out. But if you watch that video, the way they word everything, it made it seem like he only got spirit regen stacks from hitting abilities, which would be a completely different story. I think it would be, depending on what the spirit regen stacks he got were, that would suck for Khaimera if you couldn't stack your regen with basic attacks.
I mean, I think that also just comes back to wording. A lot of this is very nuanced in a very complex kit, and they're not really giving us a lot of details exactly on how it's going to be working. And so, and to Jelly's point, I want to say it's like, they're doing a lot of interesting things with the most recent updates to champions that we've seen. And I'm wondering if that's just their divergence in take on how they want the game to be played. Because there is a lot more CC in the few kits that we've seen. And there's a lot more, outplay potential in some of the kits that we've seen. And I think there's an opportunity here that even with it sounding on paper, because a lot of this is our previous experience in either Paragon or using Fault as a reference of what this kit can look like in those games. But with Predecessor, we don't really know with all the stuff that they've updated and and the scaling and the items and all that stuff of why maybe they feel like Khaimera needs this as part of his kit to be effective and efficient in his role. So I'm excited still that they're making changes and trying to make a more aggressive a take on these kits, but obviously we'll have to see what it looks like once people are able to play it and abuse it. Because I mean, when you start thinking about like a tank Khaimera who not only is just basically health regenning through everything, can not be CC'd, and then you throw in other items and especially activatable items, he could be unkillable in some aspects. I mean, depending on how they figure it all out, and so that's kind of scary if you're a mid laner or off laner like me.
Another thing I want to know is if it acts. I'm going to again go back to Hunter's Guile back in Paragon days. I used that a lot on Shinbi, and one thing I had discovered was if Decker puts a wall down and walls you in, if you hit it the second you were about to touch the wall, you would just walk straight through a wall. Like the Hunter's Guile would negate that. I wonder if it's going to work that way with Decker's basic ability cage and Predecessor, because that would be a real poopy pants moment when you think you have him locked down in your cage and he just walks right through it like a fucking ghost.
So it's weird because I'm looking at the thing that's on live for them. The invigorate. It says Khaimera instantly cleanses, so it's not something he has to press ahead of time. He could press that while being CC'd if I'm reading it correctly. It says immediately cleanses.
Yeah, it's pretty heavily implied though that you need to pre-use it if you want to stop yourself from being stunned.
Well, so in like League of Legends, you can get CC'd and then cleanse yourself out of a CC. And if in really high elo pro plays and stuff like that, it's almost instantaneous where you don't even actually end up getting CC'd for much. It's more of like a little hiccup. But that's because when I see the word cleanse and immediately, that's what I think of is being able to just, once you feel yourself being CC'd or you just got CC'd, press that button and you're out of it. I don't know.
Jalay Linneo comes up. He says, "What do you think Kai needed to make him interesting, balanced, unique?" I think the change to his ultimate is a great change that will add a lot to skill expression. Being able to jump in and stun several people would be pretty damn cool, and you get a fuckload of spirit stacks. It not being a lock on means that you can actually miss it. So again, more skill expression with that. We're going to have to really see how it works out. I highly doubt you're going to have too many opportunities to get multiple people with it because people are just going to be spread out. But it's like the Faye's ultimate. You think that you're always going to get all 5 members of the team. You can rarely get 2. You know what I mean? Like actual, writing it down and thinking about it on paper and actual in the game are 2 very different things. So it's going to be pretty hard to get multiple people with this ultimate, I think. But again, the skill expression will be there. Catching people wrapping a corner together or something like that, he's going to fuck them up.
I think, just having a little bit of an opportunity to be a bit more efficient in a 5v5 team fight, because Khaimera is always like excelled at ganking and picking people off and stuff like that. But I would have assumed that when it came to 5v5s, he, became like a hyper aggressive melee minion, where you just CC him, kill him, and then you don't have to worry about him anymore. With having the opportunity to jump on to one guy and possibly stun, multiple people, that gives him a little bit more, and then be able to jump back out and all that. So I feel like it does give a lot more skill expression, which is I'm excited about that. I think anytime you give, players an opportunity to, it really showcase the strength of a champion's kit, it's always fun. So I at least look forward to some highlight reels of people just doing some crazy shit, and I'm sure that we'll have plenty to pick from at some point. It won't be me doing them.
I completely agree with you guys. I think it adds skill expression to him in a lot of ways. Like I said before, my biggest concern is just adding skill expression via certain ways does not always add fun to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
good point.
his passive giving someone in chat reminded me that his passive also gives him movement speed now when he gets to half stacks. So now he has movement speed, a CC cleanse, an AoE ult, and all of the things he already had before, like his health regen and his jump and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this is, we said the same thing with Decker. This kid's looking really stacked. Like at what point do you look at this and think like, well, where are the downsides? Right? CC uptime for Decker, and the ability to stick to targets with Khaimera now being so extreme. It'll be interesting to see when the test comes out or when they release in early access how Khaimera fares comparatively to the other junglers, and just to other heroes in general.
Yeah, they still have plenty.
It also makes me.
Yeah.
Well, sure, and that's another thing too, right? We know that they can like adjust numbers and kind of play around with the stuff. It's really more of like just a concern of the kit as it is, like as a whole. It just seems like a lot of tools, right? But I mean, if the other junglers, like, because if they keep releasing stuff like this, the other junglers come out and they also have their own now unique way to have, extreme skill expression. It does start to become wondering, like, if everybody, like you mentioned this at the beginning, if everybody's OP, who's really OP? And what does that look like as far as the game? Is it just like a chaotic mess where everybody's jumping around and everybody's like doing all the things all the time? Or is it like really cool, organized, beautiful, skill expression, and where, the people who are really good at the game are really going to be able to show off how good they are at the game, and you're going to have lots more, chess matches versus checkers matches, which I think could be fun. It could be really good for esports too, which is something else to consider. But
it's like the old Incredibles quote, right? When everybody's super, no one is. Right?
Yeah.
So it's at what point?
I already threw that quote out for you, Jelly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You were in limbo at the time. Also, Paragon Tinder is a great idea. I'm going to do it. That's going to be a video coming soon.
Well, you have to make FaZe and Khaimera match, because we got to respect that one guy on Reddit that wants them to be a couple. He'll watch your video and he'll like it 1,000 times by himself. I'm curious to see the next couple kits that come out of Predecessor.
Yeah.
Right? Are Decker and Khaimera outside of the box, kind of off the normal scale of things that they're doing for champion or hero balance? Or is this the new normal that they're going to go through and everybody has something that's insane? And it'll give a baseline of what they're potentially shooting for in that character balance as well. I know that was something in Paragon days Steve Superville wanted, was that he wanted everyone to be broken in their own right. And then they usually were, and then immediately got nerfed into the ground because of it. So it's a cool idea, but in practice, it's very different.
I'm just happy to see them willing to make changes to the Paragon kits.
Mm-hmm.
I really like to see that.
I think to that point though too is it's what is the sustainability of it, right? Because right now I think it works when you only have 25 champions to work with. You can make each one kind of its own OP version of itself, but as you start adding in more, this was something I think League of Legends struggled with. Is it's like as you have now, they're up to like 160 champions at this point, but like you can't have everybody being OP. Like it just doesn't work. The game won't be able to support it. So I do agree that I think like in the short term it can be maybe beneficial for the initial launch of the game, and having everybody who is favorite character is just as good as anything else. Because like if you're a Sevarog main right now and you play Fault, you're probably bored out of your mind because Sevarog sucks. He doesn't fit in any. But if you were looking at him, from Overprime, Sevarog was a lot of fun in Overprime. He still wasn't as good as a lot of the other ones, but he was fun to play and you could lane well with him. So if Pred is taking that same kind of concept of like, hey, we want every champion to feel viable. We want every champion to be fun to play. I mean, that's something we talk about on this show all the time. It's like, how fun is it to press the buttons? How much am I immersed in this world and with this character? And if I'm a Khaimera main and like I don't give a shit about anybody else's gameplay, I'm stoked on this version of Khaimera. He looks fun. Yeah. He looks like I'm gonna just go off and I'm gonna do some crazy cool things. Hey, Jelly's here.
Look at that.
And also this is another thing. It might make other people excited to play a role that they typically wouldn't play. If they see a Khaimera doing super cool stuff on a YouTube highlight reel and they're like, "Oh, I want to be that guy." Like it can't be anything but a good thing for you if you're the Khaimera versus the enemy team.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're muted.
Oh, now we can't hear you.
One or the other.
Get your shit together, Jelly.
Dude, it's been a minute apparently. But that's the other thing with Khaimera that I did enjoy about Pred's previous test.
Yeah.
But to an extent, it was only because he was strong at the same time. Is I've never been a Khaimera player.
Mhm.
Despite being a jungler, Khaimera has never been the one that I'm like, yeah, that's the jungler I want to play. And that's I've played him a lot more in Predecessor and Fault than I ever did in Paragon. But that's also because he's the best jungler in a lot of cases, rather than he's the one I want to play. Right? When Fault came out, it was between him and Boris, and if you're playing anybody else in the jungle, you were joking because they were insane. When Predecessor's last test was happening, if you weren't playing Khaimera, you were definitely putting your team behind because he was absolutely nuts in the last Predecessor test. So I'm excited to play him, but hopefully it's not just out of a I just want to win feeling, more that it's actually because the character is fun.
Right.
You did bring up Sevarog Viking Jedi. I will say from experience, I absolutely fucking loved playing Sevarog in Predecessor.
Did you?
Loved it. So good. So much fun.
I mean, to me, that's like a key to all these games is I mean, I know we're talking about Predecessor right now, but I feel like the success measure, I mean, when we were talking about with Fault and Iggy coming out, Iggy's so much fun to play. Like I want to play a game where the characters are fun to play. And one of the things that me and Jelly were talking about, and we're not going to go too much into Fault, but like if you end up getting stuck on a champion that you don't want to play, or you end up being in a role you don't want to play because that's just how things ended up. You ended up either as carry or you ended up as support, but none of them are really all that fun to play. You're going to be bummed. You're going to want to AFK. You're not going to be giving your all. Yeah. So if Predecessor is understanding that that's a real issue, and I think that's an issue for all of these games, because any new player that's coming into this is going to be on the I don't know what to play, I'm just going to pick what looks cool or sounds good or is in a somewhat reference to a game that I've played before. If those kits aren't engaging and fun and relatively easy for people to pick up, they're going to leave. And so I think if Predecessor's approaching, again, the idea that we want to make every champion viable, we want to make every champion fun, maybe OP in really good hands, but for the vast majority of quote unquote, casual players or new players, it'll probably even out across the board. I'm okay with that short term. I don't know how it's going to do for the long term of the game, but at least short term to get people playing and in your lobbies, I think I'm okay with it personally. What do you guys think?
I'm cool with it. Like I said, the game isn't even out yet.
Sure.
They could put this out. If it's way too overpowered, they can reel it back in. They have plenty of time.
And theoretically, they're still doing internal testing, right? So it's hopefully they've seen what the potential is of this character, and that's been shown in the internal testing to be okay with what the other things they're doing, whether it be new characters or balance or items or any of that. That hopefully this is shown that it's already at a state that it is good, and the numbers just look insane, but actually it is fairly balanced.
Right. All right. You guys ready to head into Overprime?
Yeah.
All right. Let's swap on over to Overprime. Overprime, big news coming out of Overprime this week is probably that Faye video, but I want to start off with, we saw some, I didn't record it and put it up into the segments like I normally do because they were all in shorts format, but it was Netmarble themselves have been advertising for Overprime, either directly or indirectly. A lot of Netmarble marketing stuff currently, if there is a computer screen in the background, it has Overprime on it. Like, it doesn't matter what it's for. It could be for a completely different game. If there is a computer screen in the background, the Overprime logo is on that fucking computer screen. And then the shorts, like I showed you guys, were actually kind of fucking funny. Like, it surprised me, but was mainly because we all know that Netmarble is a huge mobile gaming company. Overprime is the first actual computer-based game, PC-based game that they've taken on, and that's kind of their push with Overprime. They are marketing heavily to let people know that this is a game that's on PC and you play on a mouse and keyboard, which ties in with one of the advertisements, which was the Q button getting constant. It was an actual person getting hammered on the head while the R button's just sitting there, for some reason, drinking a can of Pringles with an umbrella,
Hey,
just chilling out,
don't judge them.
and then finally just
Liquid
gets
Pringles is
crushed.
the best.
Liquid Pringles.
I mean, I think it's great to see this, right? One, it probably indicates that Overprime is sooner than later. That if Netmarble as the bigger owning company is starting to push out advertisements for them, that means they're trying to get it in people's minds so that when a release happens, people are ready to play it, want to play it, all those good things.
Yeah.
So super cool idea to have it be on super cool for Netmarble to have it on their TikTok and be pushing it themselves in addition to what Overprime's already doing.
Any thoughts, Jedi?
I mean, not really. I do. The advertising was funny. If you guys haven't seen them yet, you should go and look them up. Maybe Mangoose will have them linked or something. But there's one. The sounds are a little sus. I think it's the keyboard smashing one. It's a little.
Yeah,
a little provocative, but I'm bought in. I like it. But I think this just seems to kind of go along with also the way that Overprime is approached. Yeah, I mean, with the webtoons and the way that they put out content, it just seems like they're way more like lighthearted, maybe even like appealing a lot more to the Zoomer, younger millennial culture. You know what I mean? Like they're not looking to necessarily appeal or appease with their advertising, at least to the old crowd, the old Paragon heads. You know what I mean? The guys who are our age and I think that's smart, because if they want their game to be successful, they're going to need to get it in the hands of every, teenager, in South Korea especially, but even across the world. And I liked also that they were putting in attention to make sure that it was Western audience ready, not just made for the Eastern audience, which I thought was smart, because it didn't immediately, force us who actually pay attention to this stuff to have to go and translate and do all that other stuff like we've had to in the past. So it's cool that they're actually putting in an effort to still keep in mind that, yes, maybe the majority of their focus is on obtaining as much of their audience in their region. They are still aware that there is a demand for their game in other regions, and they're still, putting in the effort to make sure that we're able to consume the content well.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of that.
Sean Connolly says Faye could be whatever role she wants. That's right. She's a strong, independent fairy. She can do what she wants.
I think the other thing of Netmarble pushing it on their TikTok implies that we're probably going to see a free-to-play release for early access
Fairly soon, yeah.
And
yeah,
that it's not going to be some kind of buy-in. I know people have been kind of skeptical one way or the other, right? That it's going to be a free-to-play release, because if they're pushing it to their mobile community, which are free-to-play games, but they have the microtransactions, the likelihood it's a free-to-play game is very high off the bat.
Yeah. Well, let's get in now to the Faye gameplay video that we saw. So some of the changes: Untamed Growth, her right-click, that's the flower that spins up and explodes. That applies a slow on hit now, it seems. The interesting thing that Frisia201 that's in chat right now brought this up to me. So brambles in the video applied a slow, and it did persistent damage. The longer you stayed in the brambles, the more damage you would take, which was not the case in Paragon. It was just one instance of damage in Paragon. What Frisia noticed by pausing the video, though, is that it says that it gives allies movement speed, but it doesn't mention the slow. So I don't know if this was an older version, if they plan on changing that for her. Thematically, that makes zero fucking sense to me. Why brambles on the ground would make anybody move faster, but
I'm not going to question it.
I think it already.
I've been training and sprinting on brambles my entire life.
Oh, have you?
Moment.
Are you Briar Rabbit? Is that what you are? Fucking no. What with the Faye? Like I said, I put a video out about it. The Faye was. I don't know which one I had played more, either the Faye or Richter. The Faye was always my ace in the hole. I played the dog shit out of Richter, but if it was a day where I was getting my shit kicked in by everybody, I'd be like, all right, motherfuckers, I'm getting on the Faye and I'm going to destroy everyone. And I would, because I fucking love the Faye. But these changes that we see to her, she was, I always played her mid lane. You could play her off lane. Some people like to support with her. I think Faye support only really came online about the time that I quit playing Paragon, which is towards the very end. But I think with the kit that they've given her now, especially if they give those the Bramble patch a speed up to allies, I think she'll make one hell of a great support. She's going to be an aggressive support that mainly just pokes the ADC out of lane with Harvest Nettles, like, because that's kind of the way she worked in Paragon. But she'll also now have a bit of opportunity to help out her allies a little more. Not a pretty cool stuff.
Having a ranged slow like that is going to make jungle ganks really nice too, for us as a support, right? That you get a good carry in there, she slows them down, and then the jungler comes in as well. You're definitely going to see some people using that starting item flash to get out of there very, very soon.
Yeah.
I loved the video personally. I'm also a fan of the Faye. I was not as much of a diehard Faye player as it sounds like Mangoose was. And guys, if you haven't watched his video, he did put out a video going over all of the kit and everything like that we could see. Really, really good video in my opinion. Not just jerk you off or anything like that. You're welcome. I thought it was a really good video. My favorite thing, and this is just kind of going because you guys brought up really good points, but I just love the animation that she has. Like, all of her animations look really fun. Her swing when she's throwing her autos, so cool. Yeah. It just looks like she's really like getting into it. And I don't know. The wings in the brush though drove me nuts. I couldn't. Yeah. It was hard to look at. But outside of that, like I don't know, man. It just looks fun. She looks like she's gonna have fun. And team fights, she looks like she's gonna be a beast. I mean, like, just so much AOE damage and consistent. Like, I don't know. She looks like she'll be fun though to play and annoying to play against, probably.
Like Faye usually is. Yeah, 100%.
But
yeah. Did you guys notice anything else from the video interesting? I didn't really notice that much, other than I'm now going to call their core the anus of annihilation because it.
I don't see it, but
you don't think that looks okay.
No, but I will say and I'm glad you kept it in your video. So it's at the very end. There's a really cool shot where we get to see Howitzer doing his ultimate, and it was like in a, like, I don't know, it looked like almost cinematically put there. Like, it was so cool the way that it all kind of came together, because you got the Decker cage where everybody kind of got bottled up, and then you see Howitzer's missiles just come flying
like
through.
Starfall, yeah.
Oh, it was so fucking cool. So it reminded
me of flares off of a fighter jet.
That's a very good description. Yeah. But it looked really, really, really cool. And I don't think it was intentional, but just the way that where they were and how they were fighting, like, her camera kind of caught all of it. Like, it wasn't like she was.
You see him go up and then it just rains down.
Yeah, it just looked really neat, and it got me excited because I was like, dude, that again, same. I'm a fan of team fights. I love when you have the 5v5 coming together, and it's just, which team comes out on top. And seeing that kind of like play happen made me think, like, dude, if this was like a mid-game fight for, now we're gonna go to, the end gaming buff or whatever after this fight, so whoever wins this is probably gonna win the game, and then you see a Howitzer coming through, and I don't know, it just looked fucking cool. I got really excited about that, so I can't wait for them to show off Howitzer's kit at some point, because that looked it just looked really cool.
One thing watching the video, like, I never want to like we've gotten like Jon Snow just fucking crushing it, like, in a lot of these videos, and I never want to harp on like somebody's gameplay abilities, but as like a former Faye main, it was killing me. I'm like, why are you not hitting with Harvest Nettles? Just do it. Like, why did you throw that there? Why did you put that like the whole time? So I can't wait to get my hands on her in Overprime. I've already got to experience her in Predecessor, and fucking dominated people with her in Predecessor. I usually don't toot my own horn, but god damn it if I didn't just crush people with the Faye in Predecessor. I don't know, you guys ready to move on to Ethereal?
Let's do Ethereal.
Ethereal?
I feel like we do this every week now, where you say Ethereal, and then there's always somebody chimes in with a different pronunciation.
I know, right?
We gotta make sure everybody knows what game we're talking about.
It's our fucking thing, man. It's our thing.
Ethereal, Ethereal, Ethanol.
So with Ethereal, they released a concept art skin for another one of my favorite, well, myths this time, Leah. I guess I just got a thing for winged females. I love me the Faye. I love me some Leah.
Good to know. Mangoose winged females. Got it.
But this Praetorian Leah skin looks amazing. We've seen the Egyptian skin for her before, which also looked great. I think this skin looks even better. I cannot wait to see it in the game. Jelly, what do you got to tell us about this skin?
I mean, so something you and I talked about many, many moons ago, Mangoose, long before I was even on the team, was with Leah, right? Her base skin kind of fits a place in the world, right? Like you've kind of got this like Mayan, Aztec feel to her base skin. Then you've got Egyptian Leah, which is just another culture from around the world, right? And now you've kind of got this like Roman Greek skin, right? That again, another culture, like, and it doesn't get like less satisfying to see, right? Like even though it's kind of based on another culture that we see in the real world, but from history, it's still badass. Like it's just the way the armor falls. I love the little armor on her wings as well.
Oh,
at the top, super cool. I'm excited for it, and it's a cool skin for sure.
If we don't get like a Norse Valkyrie version of Leah,
let me take notes real quick, Mangoose.
we gonna fucking riot. We gonna fucking riot.
I agree though. Like, I mean, as the Viking Jedi, I feel like that's like a missed opportunity if you don't take advantage of it. But no, this Praetorian it's so sick. The color combination I think is my favorite. For me, it feels like a relatively underutilized color combo. So the palette is really neat. I think that the red with that like silverish gray is just so cool, and it's like that deep blood red, which is really, really, really neat because it just really like plays on the contrasts really well. And I'm definitely no like designer, but this makes my eyeballs happy. So that's simple enough for me. It looks cool. I can't wait to see what her animations look like and all that stuff. And I know that's probably coming at some point, but like she looks fun.
And she should be rolling around here on the screen again. And then there's another skin, if you guys are on the Patreon for Ethereal, was released this week. I can't talk too much about that, but that's another one that I specifically requested a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Armadillo,
that's why I even sent it to you, Mangoose. It was like, hey, make sure you see this thing because I know you're gonna be happy about it. Like,
oh, there it goes. It finally rolled around. I didn't leave it up long enough. I need to. I'll take note of that next time I do the overlays. So we got anything else for Ethereal?
Nothing directly. I mean, my thought now, every time I look at your footage every week for Ethereal, is that I need to get you new gameplay footage.
I was thinking that too, but I don't want to.
The map just drives me nuts when I see the old map. I'm like, oh man, it's so bad.
I mean,
in
if you want to
comparison
let
to
me in
one.
and just run around by myself and just get some footage, I would not be mad at that whatsoever.
It's okay. Stuff's coming, Mangoose. I promise.
Right on. Moving on from Ethereal, we'll get into Fault for this week. And Fault this week released was a patch 18.1. A lot of different changes, a lot of buffs, a whole lot of bug fixes. And I got in a little bit and tested out because they buffed the dog shit out of Bellica's command drone, which if you've played Fault, you know the command drone really doesn't do much. It doesn't sap mana like it used to. All it does is it just hits people with a little shot if they use an ability while under it. Just dicking around with it, it deals a lot of damage now. Like I can see this creeping up on people, especially in a big team fight. So I think that's good to see. We've been asking for a little more functionality on our command drone for a while. Was there anything about the patch you guys in particular were happy about?
Nothing directly in terms of the patch changes, but it reminded me. So the buff to the green cleave item made me happy to see, right? Because it got slightly stronger. And then Viking and I have been playing probably 15 or 20 games over the course of this last week of Fault. And every time I ran those cleave items, I dominated. Like it's just, it's insane. Both the purple and green one depending, right? But they are nuts, and it's one of those like I forgot how good they were, so I stopped using them, and then that reminded me of like, oh, that's right, these are pretty good, and like started using them again, dominate every jump into a team fight, press the activatable button, win. Like just what it
I
felt
think
like sometimes.
I think what was cool too, talking about the cleave, is like because you mentioned it like maybe just in passing, and I caught it because normally I don't really care about him talking about jungle because I don't play jungle, but he was talking about too like just the fact that it helped him get through his clears a little bit faster, which you don't really think about I think sometimes, but power farming in MOBAs in general is usually something that's like super important, especially when you get into like the higher elos and stuff like that. So the faster that he was able to like not only gain golden experience, but then go out and influence lanes or counter jungle. I think was something I didn't really put together that much. But now that you're bringing up the cleave things, and I heard you say something like that, like man, I'm getting through my camps fast or something like that, and I was like, okay, why or something? You're like, oh, because the cleave thing, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to throwing E's on top of minions and getting free gold for it. But no, I think that's important. So like those little changes. I know that there's like some performance issues that people have had since this patch came out, but I was happy to see some of the more balanced changes. It did seem like that bomb now that she throws out does so much damage. I think she's back as far as a mid laner, in my opinion. I think she can really do some work, and like you mentioned in team fights, like it you don't realize it because it'll get stuck on your head, you don't know, and you're walking around with all your other people, and next thing you know you're half healthing your squishy. The
Wrong
bomb
character.
no
Wrong
isn't it
character.
the one? Oh
That's
well,
the
that bomb was
Belica.
doing fucking damage. Yeah, that's all I know.
Talking
Then
about Gadget.
yeah, that's Gadget then. My bad, dude. But that bomb was doing fucking work. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it seemed like that thing was doing a lot more damage than it used to. But maybe just the guys we were going up against, were just better on it
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
probably
Or
just the
building
guys
it
you're
better.
going up against.
Okay,
That
well
bomb
then
has always
forget
done
all the
a
rest.
fucking massive amount of
Yeah,
damage.
delete all previous comments before that then. But I was
I
surprised by how
always,
much
if I'm up against a Gadget mid lane in Fault, I always take the armor item first instead of the spell book,
Mm.
because you just regen. Because you're not going to be able to avoid getting mines stuck upon your head if you're going up against anybody that's even half decent. So I just
Well,
take the armor and negate that shit.
it seems like she has like infinite range on it too. Like it just like I would be running away and like I'm like, okay, fine, you're back in lane. I don't want to fuck with you. We've been farming, back and forth. Like, okay, I'm just gonna leave now. I'm not even throwing abilities at her. I'm just leaving. And I just bomb, slow, bomb, slow. I'm like, what the fuck? I might as well have just fought you. At least then I stood a chance. Sheesh, there's just don't. I don't understand how far she could throw it. I don't know what the range is on that thing. It seemed like
Long.
it's
Long.
far.
And the mana cost on it's negligible.
Nothing.
You so with
Her
its lower
passive,
cooldown.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's lower cooldown. So I mean, you can just spam those things. I played a game of Gadget this week that I was just
Did you?
like, oh, look, 2 seconds. Okay, throw another bomb in 2 more seconds, and another bomb in 2 more seconds. It's like you can't walk in your lane. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna bomb you out everywhere you go. Doesn't matter.
That's why you take armor first and run down her throat. That's what I do.
I mean, it got to the point. I know in one of the team fights, and I'll leave it at this. But like Jelly was like, "You have the bomb on your head," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like we're like having to, and that's a good thing in my opinion. I'm happy when you have to be aware of what's going on because again, I think that damage like sneakily, like it'll have health some people if they're not paying attention because it's not just you have to worry about. So it was annoying, but I also think it's good for the game. It was a lot more fun, and I was happy to see more of them in lane. But anyway, sorry.
Sophisticated carrot. Whatever you think the range is, double it.
Yeah, seriously. It's
Armadillo,
so
you're well.
long.
Yes, Armadillo did give me the idea to rock the armor when up against the Gadget. Thank you, Armadillo.
All right then.
Well, that was
What a gamer.
That was a long time ago.
What a gamer.
Another big change for me for Fault is the Tiog, I guess, was bugged and was using your personal CDR instead of item CDR. So items, you can you can decrease item cooldowns with specific either items or with the clairvoyant aspect will decrease your item cooldowns, but Tiog for whatever reason was using your personal cooldowns, which I was not aware of that, but I do know that I would play Decker with Tiog and it would just always be off cooldown. Like I just could constantly just book it through the jungle with everybody else around me. So I don't know. I'm pretty sad about that fix, but it definitely needed to happen. It was
one of
like
those things,
every
Mangoose.
support could be Narbash, pretty much.
And only win so much, Mangoose. Okay, calm down.
I'm still going to use it on Morgesh. And all right, so they also added forums in their Discord, so it's a bit more of an organized way to track what they're working on to bring up items to their attention. It's not really a like a Trello sort of thing, like a roadmap, but it does give you a little bit better of an idea of what they are working on. Like if you do bring something up to them, it will get tagged in that forum to at least let you know that they have acknowledged what your problem was, and then you can move on from there, and hopefully they can get it fixed.
Yeah, it's not really a roadmap. We recognize your bug. This is like we're working on it, or it's been resolved, right? But it doesn't. Roadmaps typically give communities ideas of what's coming down the line, and this is broken, and we're letting you know when we're working on it. That's not really the same thing.
Yeah. And finally, for Fault, let's get into. I know you guys had some spicy takes from the partner panel. You guys asked a few questions in Friday's partner panel that's on the Bearded Wolverines channel, and then re-uploaded on When Do the Mace's YouTube channel. So what do you guys want to talk about? Because you guys are hyped up for it, but I don't know exactly what you guys want to talk about.
Well, actually, before we jump into that, I do want to say, because we had one more on here, the playing games of the community for the orbs this week.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I wanted to point. I thought that was a really, really cool idea. I'm not a fan of when they did it, Arma. Sorry, bud. I think during the day, randomly, like it was difficult. I tried, and I don't work. I'm a stay-at-home disabled veteran, so I tried to get into the queue, and I had 15+ minute queue times trying to get into a game so I could play against these guys, and I just thought it would be fun to be able to talk shit once we got into FTM or whatever, to say I beat those guys, or man, I got my butthole stomped by those guys. Like it would have been fun, but it was like I couldn't even get into a game, let alone one with those guys. And I don't know if it's just because I wasn't 5 stacking or running with a group, and when I think right now, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're running as a group like I think they were, you're more likely to be higher placed or something like that.
There was only 3 of them, so they always had 2 pickups.
No, I mean like it would, like, doesn't it, like the MMR adjusts for when you're stacking with friends and versus going solo queue. I think because I'm a solo, it was like a harder chance for me to get put into their matches or something. I don't know, but that was a bit of a bummer from that. But I loved the idea. I thought it was a really, really cool idea, and I'm really excited. Hopefully this was like a test run or something like that they can feel like they can, learn from this and say, okay, we're going to do something more like this because it was fun and engaging and the community seemed to like it. So I'm excited to see more of these types of events. And with the upcoming Iggy Mastery thing, I'm hoping that there's something that they have in the works for that as well, which would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I think something you missed on the partner panel was Armadillo did bring up that it was just a test run for that sort of thing, and that they will be adjusting times later down the road. I know from experience working with Fault that Ryan Red loves to set shit up at that specific time. I don't know what it is with him, but
maybe his kids are napping or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would say I would like to see something rewarded other than loot boxes.
Oh, fair.
I think. What would you want to see?
I mean, so an avatar icon, right? Something that you've played against the devs. Do something that's more unique and special than just a loot box, because that doesn't. What is that? There's nothing signifying to me that happened, right? There's no like, oh, this guy's played against devs, or he whatever. Like, do something that like the community can recognize afterwards. That could be kind of cool to interact with. Sure. But the loot boxes just aren't that for me. Like, it's just, meh.
I mean, I agree, though. I do agree. I think that there is an opportunity for them to add in a little bit more flair and fun for participating in that event, and hopefully that feedback is something they can actually enact upon. I mean, at least it's something, I suppose. Like for me, I think it was just the opportunity to try and play against them that was a fun idea. The idea of getting a loot box out of it was whatever. I didn't really care that much about it. I don't think most people probably were queuing in to get the loot box, right? But it was a nice added bonus. But I do agree with you that I think it would be way cooler if you ended up like having two different ones, like an icon for if you beat them or an icon if you carried them. I think that would have been super neat. Or I don't know, like or a title. I know we don't have titles yet, but I don't know, something that would feel like, yeah, like I was there for that, So if they add something in like that, I think it would be a lot of fun. I don't know how easy it is to do something like that, but I think it would be fun.
And I think so. I want to address Jalay's comment about roadmaps for a second, real quick. The roadmaps give the community ammo to rage when planned content isn't released. You don't have to give release dates.
Right.
I'll bring up Ethereal. We've talked about this in the past. I'll bring up Ethereal as an example of this. Is Ethereal's roadmap does not have dates of any kind, even long-term dates, right? It's not like this is for the next 6 months. This is whatever it is. We've got short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And as they get done and as they get moved around, they get moved accordingly to where they are. But it's not dates. It's not a hard thing for the community to then weaponize in any way, shape, or form, but it keeps them informed without holding us under the gun at the same time, right? Like it's for lack of a better way to put it, to me, it's the best of both worlds of keeping people informed without potentially hurting yourself down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And well, let's move on now to the what was brought up during the partner panel, because Viking came into the partner panel, asked some pretty hard hitting questions. One was if Strange Matter feels like they're on the clock right now, because they are competing somewhat against Predecessor and Overprime that should be releasing soon. You brought up the cost of epic skins, the fact that they're even selling them at all, and Iggy and Scorch being able to just solo Prime, I think were the three questions you asked. So let's go in that order. The first one, because I know you guys, well, I mean, I don't know, you guys have been talking about this. I haven't been really participating in the conversation. You guys take it away, and I'll react as necessary.
I'll let you start it off, Viking.
Okay, so I want to. I guess I'm going to start off with this, especially since he's in here. I really want to emphasize this. Is I don't want any of this to sound like an attack on Arma as an individual, as a person, as a human being. He's a nice guy. This is not that. This is talking about, from a dev perspective to the community and the game that we're all playing and, and in our own ways rooting for to be successful in the best way that it can be. So we were playing Fault when we were watching partner panel, which was, so it was like, we were like, in the midst of playing the game while we were doing this. So for the first question, does the team feel like they're on the clock at all? I'm going to try and paraphrase some of this. I did go back into the recording and get the quote. He does a good job, and I think this speaks to what Jelly was talking about. Like, without giving time frames, that's okay. I don't necessarily want anybody to feel like they have to give time frames. So he did tell us sometimes that you can't really speak on some of it, and that's fair. I think anyone who understands gaming and game development is going to be relatively okay with it. There's just some stuff that they're not going to be able to talk about. But I found it interesting. His reply was that they feel like they've always been on the clock. Even with us as the community, they feel like that we can be impatient at times. Sounds fair. Whether I would have used the word impatient or not, that's different, I guess, but that's fine. But as far as the other games, it's he said, but it's not like a clock where we feel that the game is like, that's it. A lot of people, to be frank, think Pred is going to come out and people aren't going to play Fault. Whatever it happens, but also like it's a new shiny toy on the market. Go play it, have your fun. We'll be here when you come back. We aren't going to sit here and shut down. We are going to keep doing our thing. And then he goes on to talk about how Gamescom and some of the benefits and stuff like that. So I didn't hate that response. It did kind of, to me, skirt the question. It doesn't really give like an impression that they feel like the other games that are coming out is something they have to worry about. And I don't know if that was in his intention or not, but it just didn't feel like, because that's what I was asking. It's like, are you guys feeling like you need to do more faster to get to where you need to be able to compete with the other games coming out? And I didn't really get that answered. But what was your take on it, Jelly?
I think this is one of the answers that is the best that can be provided on short notice for a question like this, right? Because of course, I think anyone would be lying if they said that they didn't know they were on the clock, right? Whether it's because of these other games or just in general, right? That it just is one of those things in the gaming market of 2022 you're always on the clock because there's something greater coming around the corner, whether you know about it or not. In their case, they get to know about the most prominent threats to their game because they're in active development with a community that actively follows them. I mean, this show, prime example of that thing, right? Is that they are much more aware of what's going on in these other companies. They're not going to get blindsided necessarily as much as you may if you were out in the greater gaming space. I worry about the statement of saying like, go play with the shiny new toy. We'll be here when you're done. Right. And like that, there it's cheeky, right? So I kind of respect it, but it's a little on the line of that kind of statement, right? So it's that there's a lot of confidence behind that statement, which can be really good, right? That having confidence in your product or things that are coming down the line to say like, yeah, they're gonna come out. We'll be here when you're done playing with the shiny new toy. Cool. My concern lies more in the confidence we've seen in the past has not been met up with that level of confidence or with that level of execution rather. And that's where my concern comes from is there a point where we're almost overconfident about the product instead of knowing where we are at and trying to compensate accordingly? And I think that's my biggest concern with that.
And there are some people that play Fault now. Like people always say that Fault is the Predecessor waiting room or the Overprime waiting room. There are people that prefer Fault that played Predecessor and played Overprime and preferred to play Fault. There is a market for the Fault style Paragon Remake that is a little more challenging, a little more in depth. But I don't think that's certainly not going to be everybody. And I certainly think that they are going, like their biggest problem right now is player base, and they will almost certainly lose even more player base when Predecessor and Overprime come out. So it's just going to be, can they hang around long enough for people to come around and decide that they like Fault better than Predecessor or Overprime? It's going to be a rough situation for them. We'll see.
I mean, I think
deal with it.
And I'm going to hate saying this. I really will. I think for them, knowing that Overprime and Predecessor are right on the horizon, right? Pred saying that they're imminent within 2022, and Overprime, if the Netmarble advertising and some of the rumors we're hearing are accurate, we're looking at probably end of this month or next month for Overprime. And so these guys are right there. This is the moment for a lot of things to happen. And like I said, I hate that I'm going to say this. There's an aspect that if they held content for one of those games to release to then use as a carrot on a stick to bring players back in afterwards, I would understand that idea. I wouldn't fault them for going with that plan. It's risky, but it's carrot on the stick. Yes, you're playing with your shiny new toy, but look, the one you loved before just got new upgrades, right? And so there's an aspect of pulling people back across the line after the fact that you need to have something ready for. I will hate that we're not going to get content in the meantime if that is the case. I'm not saying it is one way or the other, but it wouldn't surprise me to hear that that's the idea.
I mean, I hate that you're even speaking it into.
I told you, I'm not happy.
I know.
I'm not saying. I really don't want to say delay content, but
I know. Well, it's good to know how devious Jelly really is.
He's a devious guy.
Mangus, you don't even know, man.
I don't know if I agree or disagree with you on that take necessarily. I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel like for me, and this is what I've been preaching, I think, since I got on the show, is that I think they need to do more sooner rather than waiting. And while I could see some merit to what you're saying that like, hey, we have this big update, but I'm sitting here in my head as you were saying that I'm like, what would be big enough? Like, what would be the thing that's changing enough to make people go like, oh, I'm going to leave OP or Pred. Especially, this is the other thing. If I'm having fun on OP or Pred, what's going to make me want to come back over to Fault? Like, what would be big enough to make me do that? And that's a hard question to answer. I don't even know if I have an answer for myself on that. Like, it would just really depend. And I think each individual will have their own response to what would be big enough to bring them back. So I'm still going to lean on, if Arma and the team are listening to my advice, it's that you do more faster, because the original intent with this question about asking them they're on the clock, if they felt like they were on the clock, is if they felt the way that I feel, that they need to be putting out updates and fixes and improvements and new content ASAP, like now, today, rather than waiting for these other guys to come out and hopefully not do as well as people are expecting them to do.
I mean, ideally, they're releasing content consistently before either of those games release, and then releasing content consistently after.
Right.
I'm saying that if they have to pick one, right? If they blow their content before those release, and then have nothing for the 6 months after, that's arguably worse for them than us being slightly upset at a continued drought of content to then have a ton when these other games release, right? Because for me, League of Legends, a game I've been playing since its inception, since the open beta went out originally, that game can consistently bring me back with champion releases.
Sure.
Like, they released a cool champion. I haven't played the game in 6 months, and I'll be like, you know what? I'll boot up a game of League. I'm having fun with this other game, but I'll boot up a game of League.
100%.
Right? It's just one game. If I'm not having fun, I go back to my other game, no big deal. And then I play League for another 3 weeks, and then I leave it for 6 months. Right? If they have champion releases on the horizon and these other games come out, and they're not heroes that these other games have, right? If they drop Wukong, the second OP drops, right? You know players are going to play Fault.
Why are you saying that?
But this is my point. Like, there is the potential for this to exist.
Why are you trying to piss everybody off? What is your plan here, Jelly?
If they release Seraph, I will not be playing Fault ever again. If they they have the potential to do stuff post-release to bring people back, and that's I think almost more important than their current space right now of content release.
Right.
Is a way to bring people back across the line, even if it's only for one game, because sometimes that's all it takes.
Sure.
Right? It's just the one game of the new character, and then I'm playing Fault again. Right? And if the new characters are as fun as Iggy and Scorch, even further than that.
So I know we spent a lot of time on this one question, but the other ones are a little bit beefier. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through this next one. My next question to Arma was, is there a plan to reset MMR and improve matchmaking? Apparently they had already done that. I just wasn't aware of it. So I followed up with, then what are the plans to improve matchmaking? And his answer was interesting to me in the sense of, again, kind of coming from a very like confident standpoint. And he said there's obviously plans to do advertising and whatnot. He can't go into too much depth. The big thing is obviously marketing is going to bring in new players no matter what. And I think it's that part at the end, and I don't know if he intended to say it like that, but it just really kind of like struck me. It's like, well, it's not no matter what. It's not a guarantee that just because you advertise that people are going to show up. And it's also not a guarantee of how many people are going to just show up because you advertised. Like, so I kind of took a little bit of an exception to just how confident that came. And maybe, Jelly, you have a different perspective on it. But like, I'm just like, well, none of this is a guarantee. Like, even Netmarble doing all their advertising, and we sit here and we go like, I like it, but other people are like, I don't give a shit about whatever they're trying to sell me, and it doesn't matter that they spent the money on the advertising. It could mean nothing. So not all advertisement is immediate return on investment, and so I think with that, I like having someone who's confident. Like, I don't doubt in confidence, and I know that they are. This is something that's really important to them, and they don't want to see their project that they're working on fail. It just kind of struck me as almost on the borderline of arrogance of like, well, we're going to make it happen. And it's just a foregone conclusion. And again, I don't know if that was his intention, but that's just what I gleaned from it. So what was your take on it?
I think, again, it comes down to the level of confidence comparatively to the level of execution that we've seen from them in the past. And that's super hit and miss. Mm-hmm. So it feels more like arrogance because of that, right? Mm-hmm. In the past, if they've been super confident and then hit the ball out of the park afterwards with the execution, right? Then this feels less like arrogance, because then at that point they've got a proven track record.
Sure.
Right. And so, but with their track record, it feels more arrogant. And again, I agree with you. It's the no matter what part at the end that really takes it to that side, right? That we're going to market the game. And hopefully marketing brings more players in. how are you going to negate that, right? So I think it goes back, like I said, that confidence to execution, and if they meet, the arrogance was warranted. If they don't, clearly wasn't.
Mhm.
And there's an aspect. I work in marketing is my day job, guys. So I get that it's not an exact science, right? It's not just put money here, people will come, right? I know it's not that easy, because if it was, everyone would do it. But
Right.
there's a quote that I think of all the time, it at work, but in general with marketing, is marketing is great because everyone has advice on how to do your job better,
Yep.
which is the most truthful piece of information I've ever been given whenever someone talks about marketing. Is people that don't work in marketing know how to market. People that do work in marketing know how to market. People, like, everyone can do marketing. It's
We're all
easy.
experts. Yeah, it's so
Um,
easy.
right. And so there's definitely an amount of that it's easy to say. It's easy to say things because marketing on paper sounds easy, of
Mhm.
put money on this location, make it good, people will come.
Right.
But it's not that direct, right?
Sure.
So there is more nuance to it than that.
And I will say too, like I brought this up in Discord with you guys earlier. Like Arma was asked to be at like last moment to be on the partner panel to specifically go over the patch notes. So I don't think he was quite prepared to answer these types of questions. I mean, it can be said that any dev that shows up on any kind of live stream should be prepared for these sort of tough questions at any moment in time. But
Yeah.
I will also say that that particular partner panel was probably a lot more lighthearted and fun than most of the other partner panels that we've ever had. And then Jedi came in with all of his gotcha questions and sort of harshed everybody's fucking mellow. Like
Sorry.
you crapped on our hearts. You crapped on our hearts.
I didn't mean to do it like that. I mean, there's also something to be said that, like, I'm typing and there's no, it's a text, right? And text is black and white. There's no emotion being able to really come through it. I was also trying to be as, like, straightforward and not like, I wasn't going to write up a paragraph, question. And
He
I
was also
wasn't.
in a fault game while asking these
I
questions.
was also, yeah, I was also playing Iggy in the off lane and trying not to, die sometimes. But anyway, so. I agree though, and that's the other thing too. It's like, again, and that's why I prefaced at the beginning. I don't want this to feel like it was necessarily an attack on Armo. I think it was one. It was a great partner panel, and I think anybody who is a fan of these games or Fault in general should go and watch it if they haven't already, because I think it was really informative and it's cool.
I was amazing during that panel.
Yeah, it's really cool whenever a dev gets a chance to come in and speak about their game. And Arma's funny, dude. He's got some really good jokes, and I like that he's got like a breadth of game knowledge too. Like, I loved the references to League of Legends because it's a game that I play a lot. It's a game that Jelly plays a lot, so it makes me happy to have somebody who connects on a level on that guy. But again, I was literally in their game and I'm wanting to support it. And I've been, even more recently on FTM, I feel like I've been one kind of going like, what, this has been better. This has been good. Cause when I first got on FTM, I was shitting on Fault. I was like, dude, this game is going nowhere. There's no chance for it. And I've kind of had a slight, neutrality towards it now. It's like, I feel like there is an opportunity. It's on them to really capitalize on it. And I don't have all the answers for it. I'm just a talking head with a cool beard, but like, I am happy that Arma was there. I didn't intend my questions necessarily to come across as like, trying to stick it to him, but they were questions that I feel like should be answered, and I haven't seen anyone answer them in a way that made sense to me. And so that's why I wanted to ask him. And he could have chose not to answer him. It's on him, dude. He could have been like, I'm not answering that question.
No,
Keyboard warrior? I'm not a keyboard warrior, I don't think.
Another
Maybe.
Another question you asked that I think is going to play in, not only with Fault, but this could also apply. We don't know if it will or not, but it could also apply to Predecessor and Overprime. Is that Fault is, even though, I mean, you can acquire them for free, but they are selling epic asset skins for real money, which has been a debate since the beginning of all of these Paragon remakes. It has been a debate forever. And it's one where I really see both sides. Yeah, it sucks that you have to pay for a skin that you probably already owned or maybe even paid for in Paragon, but this is a new game that they need to fund somehow, and skin sales are, of course, the way to fund it without the game being pay to win. So I can definitely see them selling skins. However, as you pointed out in your question, Jedi, they're selling them for like $25, which I think is a pretty steep price. And Arma did answer the question as to why they're selling skins, which makes a lot of sense. Like the skin wouldn't exist without the game behind it. Like they had to spend, they had to work on creating and developing the game and making a game where those skins work and fixing the skins and making their own adjustments to the skins, stuff like that. But does that justify a $25 price tag for these skins? Again, though, I do want to point out you can earn the skins for free if you put enough time in. You can pay with time. You don't have to pay with money. So
there's a couple things I want to tackle about that.
All right.
You can earn the skins for free, but something that has been a realization for me this week is that the base loot box that you get out of your dailies for Fault do not give skins until you have unlocked every single thing in the store otherwise. That is a very different... That's not how this was presented to the community. Was you can earn everything for free. And I realize it's not a lie. It's just an omission of truths. Is that, yes, you can earn everything for free once, but mainly the thing people want is skins. Once you unlock everything else, you can then earn the skins for free. And that, I feel like, is a very important distinction that was not made clear to the community. So, which is very different from how it was before the loot boxes were added, of earn enough currency, buy the skin you want if it's an epic asset. And right, because now I not only don't get a choice, I also have to wait till I unlock literally everything else in the store for my daily loot boxes. The weeklies do give skins, but for the dailies, they do not until you have everything else unlocked.
Well, it's still chance at skin shards, right? It's not a guarantee skin shard. No, for the weekly.
Oh, for the weekly, it's a chance. Correct. It's not a guarantee.
So it's still not even a guarantee. There's two parts to this. I think that the ability to unlock everything for free at some point is an appealing thing to say, and I don't hate that as a concept, and I don't necessarily even mind that it's like a crazy grind, right? The problem I come to is the value that if I don't want to spend my time, then I'm going to spend my money. But then when I look at spending my money and I'm like, well, wait, am I really getting what I would consider a good value for that money? And I think that's where I kind of take issue with why they're charging so much, especially for skins that they didn't actually have to come up with. They're not IP. They're not original. They're basically given for free assets. Now I know, and in his quote, he did say that there was a lot of issues with them. Belka hat is obviously a really one I can point to and say like, what the heck? How come that Belka hat is? I still didn't check to see if it's fixed in game. Only if they just fixed it in the store. I haven't gone in to check because I just haven't played Belka, but that would be something I want to look into. But I want to go back to his quote about what he said, because this is something that I think was the one that bothered me probably the most out of all of these, because this is one where me and Jilly have been playing Fault like a lot. Like we've just been having a lot of fun. We've been bouncing back between League of Legends until we get tilted on League. Then we go to Fault, and Fault has been a lot more chill and fun. We haven't really been getting angry or having aggressive games. We just play it until we're tired of playing games, and then we get off, and it's been fun. I've been having fun playing Fault for the most part, and every time I log in, I'm like, oh, I'm playing Iggy. I know I'm going to. I really wish I had an Iggy skin, and I think it was yesterday or on Friday. Sorry, on Friday I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go in there, and I went to go, and I was gonna buy the chicken skin, so I could yell going full chicken and all that fun stuff, and I saw that it was $25, and I was like, whoa! I was like, God, that's so man. I'm just. Yeah, like I have disposable income.
Sure which skin we're talking about, but that skin was an unreleased skin, right? Did they ever put
that one was in Paragon. Okay, 100%.
So when I saw that, that's when, and then so like we're playing the game, and so I was like, I'm gonna ask him, like, why is this a $25 skin? Where did they feel justified in spending? And his answer to my question was, those skins are worth jack shit without the game. End of story. They don't mean anything about the game behind it. Not only that, a lot of those skins are broken, which took a lot of development to fix them, and blah, blah, blah. They go back on, and he goes into more about, like, how they have to monetize. Listen, I've been talking about this since they announced going free to play, that they needed to have a monetization. We've gone over a lot of times different monetization schemes that they could have done and ways to make it appeal to both sides while still trying to generate revenue. And they decided to go this loot box orb route or buy the skins directly. It just really bothered me. I think that as a consumer, as somebody who's you literally actively playing the game right now, that was the take on it. It's like the game is worth jack, or those skins are worth jack shit to anyone. Well, that's not the point. And Jelly did some research, and I'll let him go into it about how much those cost when they were Paragon assets, not Fault assets. And it feels like, again, and this isn't Arma saying this, but it's, for me, it's Fault and SMS. It feels like a fuck you in some aspects, and I take exception to someone telling me to go fuck myself. Like I'm a consumer of your game. Like you wouldn't have a game without people who bought your game when it first came out, like me, like Jelly Knees, like Mangoose, like most of the people probably in this chat. So it goes both ways. You need us just as much as we need you, but we have somebody else coming, pack your shit to your left. Like, you know what I mean? Beyonce hits it. Like, there's another you on its way. Like,
yeah, and I agree with you. This was the answer that made me the most upset, right? And this was before I even did the research, and then the research after the fact made me even more upset. Right? Is that saying that the skins are worth jack shit without the game? Technically correct, right? That if the game didn't exist, I wouldn't be able to use this skin. That doesn't make it that answer is okay, right? That I agree with you that it does feel like a fuck you to the players of like, well, we made the game, so give us your money. And I realized it wasn't phrased that way, but it does feel that way when that's being said to you, right? Is like, that seems like a lot for a skin that you guys didn't make. It's like, yeah, well, we had to fix it, so $25 please. That's not a good answer. And looking at that skin in particular, that Iggy skin for Paragon was 1,500 coins. The coin to dollar cost is the same as it is in Fault, which is 100 coins for a single dollar. For 1,500 coins, I got that skin. So for $10 less than Fault is charging me, I got the same skin that Epic put all of the work into. Modeling, design, VFX, all of those things were done by Epic, and they charged me $10 less. And you're saying that to fix the skin and put it in your game is a $10 additional cost? That stung, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me, that's complete dissociation from the reality of your community, right? Like that was a bit much. And I want to go back to, he said that Armadillon said lesser orbs giving skins would feel bad for new players, right? That was our thought. Don't want new players to get a bunch of skins for a hero they don't have. One, limit it. You can't get skins for heroes you don't have. If you really are worried about that concept. Two, you can't get skins at all. This isn't you get skins less often than heroes. This is you don't get skins. That's two very different things. And that's fine. Give it a small chance, right? At least doing my dailies make me feel like I get a reward after I have all the heroes unlocked. Because right now I'm getting wards, avatar icons, and emotes. I don't really care about any of those things. And realistically, most players don't. Yeah, the cool emote for my favorite character, sure, right? But I might just buy that outright and then really want to roll for skins. If I'm rolling loot boxes, the thing I want out of the loot box is a skin. So after I've gotten all the heroes, I'm not allowed to get skins out of those loot boxes. That feels bad. Yeah, I agree. New players getting skins for heroes they don't have feels bad as well, right? But like I said, limit it and make it a small chance where at least after I get all the heroes, at least I'm getting something I want out of it rather than just a ward or a avatar icon or whatever it may be, right? I'm not saying it needs to be the highest percentage of things that I can get out of that box, but at least make it a chance. And that's where the big frustration for me comes in, is this was presented when Lootbox came out. I had the whole thing on my stream talking to some developers and talking to people in the community of you can earn everything for free just from your daily loot boxes. You can, with an asterisk of you can get the skins after you've gotten everything else. And that's
everything else unlocked.
That was yes. And that was not conveyed well.
Right. I also want to point out too, because Arma, I hope you're still here, I think I saw a message from you recently. So you also mentioned League of Legends a lot. So I know you've played League. Like when we compare the value to a game like League of Legends, the skins in League, there are $25 skins in League of Legends. They're the legendary skins. And I just don't think that a chicken epic skin asset is on the same level as a DJ Sona skin. It's just not anywhere close. But because for those of you who don't know, in League of Legends, there's a character who's music oriented, and there's a DJ one, and it plays music for the whole map. Everybody can go on and listen to this, and you can change the song. It has a whole all new back animations, has visual effects for all the spells. It's everything. It's massively different, and there's only a few of them in the game at all. But it's one of the best skins in the game. Everybody, when they see that skin, they know that it's a badass skin. It costs $25. It's just bonkers to me to say that a chicken skin without any of the rest, without any of the additional bells and whistles, is on the same level of that. And I think that's, if I was going to go back to your team, I would say that, like, if we're modeling after other games and looking at how they're monetizing and trying to make sure that we're giving our players incentive to purchase and be part of this and make our game more successful, well, then you need to do a better job of creating those. Because right now, I was going to buy a skin and I didn't, because I didn't like what you were going to charge for it. And if I'm the person you're aiming for, is the guy who hasn't spent any money in the game in a while, but now I want to get them to spend money, what is going to be my incentive to do so? Cost is one thing, but the value is the other. If that $25 was going to something really cool, like if you took the epic asset, but then you increased it and made it like a bigger deal, like his animation does like a whole, I don't even know, I can't even give you ideas. If it was like a whole thing, I probably would be more into it, but it doesn't. So it's like, why would I could save my $25 and go buy a League skin.
Custom turrets and VFX, I believe, but that's it.
Playing devil's advocate here, though, League of Legends can afford to kind of reduce or charge that amount for skins because they know they're going to sell them. Fault doesn't really, Strange Matter doesn't really have that luxury. Like, they're not going to sell 100,000 Iggy skins. You know what I mean? I always come back to this. Fault's biggest problem is its player base. It's a good game. They got good devs, but they just don't have anybody playing it, and that causes just it's an endless downward spiral of other issues. The MMR issues, being able to make money issues, all sorts of issues. So maybe they've done some sort of cost benefit analysis and they've realized that they need to be able to charge that much to keep the game rolling in the future. I don't know. As far as the skins go and the loot boxes, first, well, let me right off the top, I don't like loot boxes as a monetization strategy. Never have, never will. But that is what they went for, and I think if you did, so if you are going to go with loot boxes, if that's going to be your monetization strategy, you've got to make the loot boxes worth something. And I think if you put skin fragments in every single loot box that you can open, then you're devaluing the loot boxes and making it almost pointless to use loot boxes as a monetization tool.
I disagree. I understand where you're coming from with that. I think if you're making it that every loot box always gives a skin, it devalues your loot box.
Right.
If you're saying that there is a chance to get skins out of your loot box, that is different, because that does not guarantee me the thing that I want. And if there's a way that you get people to buy loot boxes, it's by telling them that you might have a chance at getting something. Then when they don't get it, they go, but the next time I'm going to get one. True. And they buy it. So that to me 100% is them not allowing for skins in their lesser orb loot boxes is off the mark.
I also think they did like part of what League of Legends does for theirs, and then did it like in a poor way. Like we talked about this when they first announced it, but like even like when we were thinking about like using the void system again and like re-rolling to try and get opportunities at skin shards. The thing that with League is that if you roll 3 skins, you get a permanent skin no matter what. If you re-roll a skin shard, you get a permanent skin. If 3 of them, they should have that same thing in this. Like if you have unlocked 3 shards, you re-roll them, and depending on the percentage or whatever of like how they have it currently, if you have a full bar, you have a higher chance of getting maybe a tier 3 or tier 4, or maybe they don't even have the tier 4s in there. The tier 4s are literally for purchase only. I wouldn't be that upset about it. I mean, I'd be bummed because I maybe couldn't get the one, but at least if it was you got a skin for re-rolling 3 skin shards that you didn't want, right? Maybe I just don't understand why that. If you took the idea from games like League of Legends who have this same kind of system, that's a big core part of how they appeal to people who are getting these loot boxes and so forth, because you end up with stuff you don't want or need. Like I don't need a Nasus skin. I don't play that guy. So I'm gonna re-roll it and hope that I get something else. Ah, fuck! I got a NASA skin anyway. Oh well, at least I have it. Like like I guess that's just my final take on that. I just really hated like
And
the whole idea that these skins are worth jack shit without the game. I hated that comment, Arma. Maybe you didn't intend for it to be that way, and I apologize if I caught you off guard with my questions. I wasn't intending it to be a gotcha moment. I was just really like bummed because I was about to buy a skin in your game and saw that it was $25 and I was like, never mind. So that's my final statement on it.
I think something I also want to point out is I think the bigger factor is it's $25 for a skin they didn't make.
Yeah.
And that's having to fix it aside. You didn't make the skin, right? And that's where I think it really, at least for me, feels the worst.
Well,
and it
especially
feels
since they're
really,
charging $10
really
more.
really grimy to do. If they were charging me, I'm not going to give a figure because then they're going to change it to that, and I'm still going to be upset. But if they created a custom skin fully off the ground like Astro Gideon, right? And then we're like, this skin is $15. I'd be like, you know what? I'll pay $15, right? But or whatever the equivalent. Again, the confidence to execution, right? That I think that's going to be my theme for today is this confidence versus execution, right? But it's right now the confidence of they're going to pay $25 for this epic asset skin does not meet the execution, and I'm not going to pay $25 for that epic asset skin, right? And that's what it comes down to. If the confidence and execution are at $25, I'm in. I'll pay $25. That the dollar amount itself is not the barrier. It's what the dollar amount is getting me. And that's I think a core difference. Like you said with the ultimate skins in League, you're getting a ton for $25, right?
And it's originally made. Like it's
and
their
that's
assets,
right? Like so it's one of those things.
Yep.
Well, boys, we've been talking for about an hour and a half, and I would like to reserve the last half hour for community questions if you guys don't mind moving on.
I just want to say one last thing real quick is the energy we talked in the past about the energy on false community corners being not present. That it was just kind of like humdrum the whole time with very, very few peaks of excitement or things to get the community engaged in that feeling. The energy that Arma brought to the partner panel is the type of energy I would love to see Fault community corners have going forward.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Arma, you were a treat more times than not to listen to. I didn't like the answers to my questions. First of all, I didn't like the answers, but I didn't think that you were a douchebag or anything like that. So I again want to make that clear because I thought Arma was great. He was funny. He was engaging. He understood why we would even be asking the questions in the first place. Obviously, I know he's hamstrung by having to keep some things behind closed doors, and I get that. But it was really refreshing to see him on partner panel. I was really stoked to hear his thoughts on not just about the questions I had. Some of his other things were really funny. I think the funniest thing was when he was talking about IQ and Goose thought he was talking about Bearded.
I really did think he was just shitting on Bearded.
I was like, dang, dude, really making.
Man, shot across the bow on Bearded.
That was hilarious. That was so funny.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think that was great. So
let's move on to some of these community questions here.
Let's do it.
The only one I've gotten written down so far, but it's a pretty interesting. Julie Linneo, what does everyone think about having the ability to purchase minion and team buffs with in-match gold? I think
King's Hunt approach.
What's that?
A King's Hunt approach.
Yeah, it is a King's Hunt approach, isn't it? See, this is applied to Paragon. It is applied to all the other games following on. There comes a point where you're at max build and you've got like fucking 3,000, 4,000 gold and goddamn nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I think any kind of system would be beneficial.
Something to spend it on.
It's usually some sort of potion that just gives you like a temporary boost to like health or attack power or something like that. But I think being able to boost minions, I think that would be a pretty neat idea. I don't know about boosting your entire team. I think that might be a little overpowered, but like giving your minions extra armor or giving them extra speed or attack or something like that would be a way to end games that are going too long And I think that would just be a cool idea that we haven't seen in any game before. I think this is a really neat question.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think having something to spend it on is useful. I mean, there are very, very few times that I get to full build and vault, but they don't have any kind of consumables after the fact, right, Mangoose?
Right.
Are you thinking
Right.
like the potions like they have in League and stuff like that, which are your like
So there's nothing. You get to full build, and there is nothing for you to spend your money on,
right?
right? Maybe it's you give the minions in one lane a buff to push down the lane, or whatever it is, right? Even maybe you upgrade the lane instead of one super every 3 waves, it's one super every other wave, right? Something
Cool.
or whatever equivalent, right? Because I realize that it increases throughout game time, but there's definitely options there to create cool ideas of something to do with your gold after the fact.
So what if
I
they?
agree with Arma though. It
I
could
do
be a
too.
balanced nightmare.
It could be a total balance nightmare. But oh my gosh, I totally just blanked. The shooter game that we're super excited to come back out, the one that
VX? Veiled Experts?
yes, Veiled Experts. What if there was something similar to like the way that you use gold in Veiled Experts, or the way you can use so where you can pool the money towards like a big purchase that does something like that, like like you get a turret minion to spawn because you had enough gold to throw into it. It may be because of balance. You could probably make it to where it doesn't come online until like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes or something like that. But or even if it might be fun, even if it's just available, like, okay, wait, do I buy my item or do I get a badass, turret minion in the lane? It could be cool. I don't know. I think it would be, if a game were to do it, I think it could be like a really, really fun way to make the, because it would make your whole team have to pay attention to the gold they use differently, and I think that would be fun because gold is boring except for to buy items. So if you could make gold feel more valuable outside of just your items, then it makes everything, I don't know, more engaging. It'd be fun. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Oda brings up that in Paragon they did have cards that affected minions, but I think we're talking about something a little different than that. Like that was just an item on one person that provided like an AoE buff to minions around you. But I think what we're talking about is more of like a general, either adding minions or buffing all the minions. And I just think that there needs to be something else to do with gold. And I like the VX idea, Jedi. I think that would be cool. Like a 10,000 gold thing that the entire team can buy towards.
Yeah. I mean, or even if it's like a pooling, right? Like, okay, so how many times have you gone back, right? You buy your item and you end up with like, I don't know, like 150 gold. And you're like, fuck, I don't have enough to buy anything with. But if it was like, I would, every time I backed, I would probably be like, oh, I'll just throw that 150 into the pool that's going to be used for said thing. And I think, I mean, I think it would be fun. You probably have to worry about.
At 10,000 gold, your whole team gets a 30% movement speed increase. Okay, bam, solved. No big deal.
I do also like Hooded kind of brought up one that I think is good, or a buff that allows you to share all gold and XP you earn to nearby teammates to help those behind. I think that could be cool. Like you could build towards like almost doing it like a Valorant, where you could buy like XP or items for, like, let's say your support, right? Because supports are almost always behind on the power curve, right? They're always going to have behind gold and items. So being able to funnel them more gold or XP could be another way to, and I don't think balance would be as bad on that. You could probably, that's a good one too.
Another thing I guess you could do, I've always hated inhibitor respawns, but like paying enough gold to respawn an inhibitor
respawn an inhib
would be a good comeback mechanic, I think.
I think it would need to be on a timer still, but there definitely, that could be a cool aspect of it, pay to make your potato turn back into an inhib, a full turret.
That would be cool.
Like, but it would have to have like a construction thing to it, right? So the enemy team can like be like, oh, they're constructing their, inhib turret back or something like that, and that way they could play around it and go like, oh no, we're gonna go over there and smash that, and you lose the resources that you put into that, because otherwise you have too many games stalling out, I think.
Here's the Storm does something similar. Some certain heroes, I know Abathur has it. It's called a mule, they call it. I think that's a term from StarCraft, but it's like a repair thing that can be set on a tower and will increase its health to a certain percentage and repair the tower, but it is targetable and you can destroy it. I think that would be a neat thing to be able to buy.
Jelly, Arma just confirmed that they're gonna put Yorick in the game. So there you go.
I'm in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sold.
That's one of Jelly's favorite.
Put
by the
Yorick
way,
in the
Arma.
game. I'll be there.
Yeah, seriously.
I'll buy his $25 skins.
Yep. What probably if there's a Malzahar like then I would probably be there too because the Malzahar is probably my favorite or Brand.
He also
Brand
confirmed Wukong earlier, so I mean,
he did confirm Wukong earlier. That's true. Thank you, Arma, for being here and confirming all the things that we say.
I want to say too, a few people have talked about the cool little animations I have. Like I've got Feng Mao running right now, and like last time I had Melika and Morgash. I made entire videos out of those, but nobody watched them because it was fucking tons and tons of work for like a 1 minute video, and then YouTube's like, yeah, we're not showing anybody this 1 minute video, so I figured I'd get some kind of use out of those fucking assets I made.
Oh,
So
an Ornn passive to buy gold or to use your gold in lane, that would be sick too. Dude, just borrow all of the good ideas from all these other MOBAs and then just put the... I mean, that's what Iggy feels like to me. He's just a different version of Heimer. He's not a bad version of Heimer. I don't even think he's a cheap version of Heimer. In fact, in some ways, I think he's better than Heimerdinger is. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
You know what would be a cool item is for every basic attack, you pay 100 gold to make it stronger, like a late game item. So if you have like 4,000 gold, you could just like
yeah.
Your gold.
Let's have Sparrow one-shot people more often than she already does. Thank you.
I think it'd be fun as fuck though.
So I just put another question in there from Jalay as well. Talk about single-player co-op casual content. Is it necessary for a MOBA to be what? Single-player or co-op casual content? Is it necessary for a MOBA, or does it need to be sweaty PvP to survive?
I think for a MOBA, you have to have sweaty PvP to survive. I think that it's a nice option to have the casual PvE stuff for a lot of people, but if you're going to attract the vast majority of MOBA players, you need the sweaty PvP.
I agree. I think, I mean, when we talk about like, there does need to be a space for casual players, but the appeal for a lot of people who play these types of games is to climb, right? Is to be better, have your highlight reels, eventually have a ranked system where you can really show off that you're best and you're better than everyone else. So you do need it to feel sweaty, and it's a fine line. And this is, I think, a thing that most online competitive games are going to struggle with is how do you appeal to the guys who are casual or just starting out so they don't get Goomba stomped by the sweats, while also still having a place for the sweats to sweat, so that way they keep your game active and appealing. To be honest, I think Valorant showcased this the best so far in a more modern game. We do talk about League of Legends a lot, but League has been around for a long time, so there's just a lot of people who are just like invested in League at this point, and they're just not gonna play it or not play it, but they're not gonna go to any other game that's in the same sphere. Like I don't think most League players are gonna go to play Dota, for example, or Dota go to League. So Valorant, on the other hand, took a concept that was pretty established and made it casual friendly while also making it very sweaty. So the appeal was to, I want to be, Taric, I want to be Shroud, I want to be 10Z. How do I do that? Well, I got to play this game and be the best and play it like they play it. Overwatch actually did that for a while too. Overwatch, I think that's another one. It really appealed well to the casual and then made the sweaty aspects of it engaging and fun. And I do think that there's a spot, and that's why I actually thought the third person MOBAs had a better chance at doing that, because of the way that you play the game. It's way more involved, you're way deeper into it. And so it's like, when you're top down, you can kind of feel disconnected. And I think when you add in the third person shooter aspect, it makes it a lot more engaging in that regard to allow for casual and sweaty. So it's just now these games have to find a way to be able to capitalize on that, and we'll see how that works. I don't know. But I do think you need it. You have to have sweaty. Have to have sweaty.
Yep, 100%. So anybody else have any questions in the chat? Let us know, and we'll try and hit them up as we're starting to close this one down. Wasn't as spicy as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was a well thought out, well discussed topic. I'm glad it went the way it did.
I mean, okay, so while we're waiting for another question to come in here, Iggy should not be able to solo Prime with 3 items at 20 minutes.
that.
Arma, you gave the example of people soloing Baron being Warwick, and you gave another one, and I can't remember what the champion
He
was.
said a few of the melee champions, but I messed up the question. I should have said turret champion.
Is that they have sustain in their kit and can sustain against the boss. Iggy does not. Iggy should not be able to solo. I went into League of Legends. I took Heimerdinger onto Baron at 20 minutes with 4 items, 5 items, and 6 items, and could only do it with a full 6-item build at max level on Baron. There is no reason Iggy should be able to do 20 minutes solo Prime. His turrets need to take way more damage. Olaf again, sustaining his kit. No, not acceptable.
And he gets hyper as he gets lower in health, so he attacks faster.
They have sustain in their kit.
That's on me, Arma. I messed up the question. I meant to ask you if there was another turret champion or a champion in the same realm that Iggy is in to be able to do that. And my main idea, and I'm sticking to this, and you guys can add in yours as we wait for more questions to come through. I think that he should be more turret focused as far as his DPS. I like that he's got a little bit more mage in his kit with his E and his right click. I wish his turrets did more DPS, like fast, like pew, 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 like I wanted more pew pews, and that they were less in health. Because I think there's only a few, and now that I've played Iggy a lot, there's only a few champions that can deal with his turrets in lane with how much health they have. It takes a lot of auto attacks for most champions to be able to kill the turrets, and the turrets are so cheap on mana, they're basically, I print them for free. So you take one out, I replace it. It doesn't matter. And so I think not having it be where it's more focused on doing DPS is the issue I take with it. And yeah, 100% he should not be able to solo it.
I'm not saying that there aren't situations where he can solo Prime. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying make it impossible. Because like I said, it was possible with Heimerdinger, but it took full build to do so. 3-item Iggy is not full build.
I like Sophisticated Care said, bro, Wukong used to solo core.
yeah. We don't talk about Wukong. Wukong's a whole different issue. Wukong also multiplied and did insane amounts of damage.
Yeah. Arma, I'd like them to, if personally, I would, I mean, not to steal too much from Heimerdinger, but I would like it if they scaled deep, attack speed in some way. So they don't start off really fast, but they can get more hyper. And that's where you can still maybe have the solo potential. Like if you really want them to be able to control neutral areas and all that stuff, which is what Heimerdinger does. Heimerdinger is so good in League when he can set up, right? That's his benefit, right? But it almost always centers around his turrets. Right now, they're not centering around his turrets because the turrets are going to do a lot of damage. The turrets are just there to be extra tanks because they have the same health as a champion, especially at 3 items when they're scaling off of the amount of AP that you're able to earn. And in a solo lane, you're not worried about energy. You're going to have plenty of energy at 3 items, and they're going to be 1,500 to 2,000 health turrets. They're gonna, and you throw the ult on top of it, it's just game over. It doesn't even matter. And the reason why I brought that question up too was me and Jelly were playing. We had just won a team fight where we killed 4 champions. The only reason why we didn't kill 5 was because their Iggy was
across the map soloing
was soloing Prime, and so we get this big team fight win. And he gets it, and he just sat there and buffed up all the minions, and so we couldn't take turrets. Well, eventually we did, but it was like a bigger pain in the ass because he just got to go off in solo, even though we won the team fight. And so that's why I brought that one up. I was like, "Fuck that, that's bullshit." And I'm playing Iggy, and there was times in the games where I'm like, "Should I just go solo it?" And he's like, "No, we're gonna push this wave or whatever," because I don't know, just yeah.
They have 700 health at level 18. I'm sorry, what?
No, there's no way it's only 700. I actually think it's more because it scales
700
off of,
by itself is still way too much.
But it scales off of the energy. So is that just base that they have 700, or is that including the energy with if you're building? I'll wait for him to answer. But yeah, so I don't know, man.
Okay, we can talk about Jale's other question.
Well, I just want to say, I want to throw this out real quick. I don't understand why Wukong was so hard to fix. All she had to do was make his 1,000 hairs do energy damage or ability damage instead of basic attack damage, and it would have completely fixed him soloing fucking... I don't understand why that was so goddamn hard to figure out. Okay, go ahead, Jelly. I'm sorry.
That's a whole soapbox, man, because we can get into
balance of Wukong. We can talk about Wukong for fucking hours and hours.
How should the 3-ish different games market their MOBA as the game to play with all of them targeting the same pool of players?
Hmm.
That's a
One.
rough question to answer. I think Overprime is doing a good job of marketing theirs as being like the fast-paced, not as much of a MOBA as it is a hero brawler sort of game. So they've got their sort of niche in the marketing space right now.
I think that's the thing, Mangoose, is you have to push your niche. You can't just say we're better than these other games, because then they're going to play your game and they're going to play that game and say, well, no, you're not in all of these ways. Right? But if you say we're better than those games at X, right? If players that like X will play your game, if that ends up being the case. Again, confidence, execution. But if and that's exactly what Overprime is doing. Is they're saying our game fills this niche, right? And people that like that niche are into it. People that don't are waiting for another game or playing Fault, right? And I think that's an important distinction to make in your marketing efforts, because you can't also be promising things that aren't true in your marketing, because then you're going to get bad reviews on Steam. You're going to get bad reviews online. You're going to get people on Reddit saying, no, don't play that game. That game's terrible, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I actually think marketing towards the same pool of players is the problem in the first place. I think that if you're going to market, you should be marketing to a whole new player base as a whole. Don't go after just Smite and MOBA players. You need to be going after first-person shooter players. You need to be going after, like, you know, that's where I would be going. I mean, as the marketing expert on this panel, you know, as we all are, that's how I would approach. Yeah, totes McGoats. That's how I would approach it. I'd be going after, you know, Valorant players. I'd be going after PUBG players. I'd be going after those guys. Those are the guys that, like, maybe don't even realize that there's a game in the market space, because that was Paul. You remember, Jelly? We told Paul, we're like, hey, dude, this is like playing a shooter game, but with abilities, and you're controlling a map, and and he's like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And the concept is there for all three of these games. It's just the one who capitalizes on that on a larger spectrum and brings in those other players that are like, and that's what Overwatch did really well with. Overwatch brought in players who were playing other types of first-person shooters and go, hey, now you have abilities, we're controlling a map, we're pushing objectives, we're doing this, and it changed everything. Valorant now did it again with taking over the same concept of CSGO. I think that there's absolutely a place for gamers. They just don't know that it exists. And I think if we get, you know, Fortnite kids, if we get PUBG kids, we get like any of those guys in this space, they'll be stoked and bring in a whole new slew of ideas and concepts that we're probably not even, you know, talking about, which would be super fun and invigorate this style, because I think MOBAs as a whole are on the downturn, but this type of MOBA I think can reinvigorate this space. And so that's my take on it. That's how I'd market.
All right, well, we're coming up on time, so let's start closing things out with plugs and any final comments that you guys have, starting with the Viking Jedi. Any final comments and anything you want to plug?
I have nothing to plug. Oh, actually, no, I do. So we're going to be doing the anime podcast again this next Thursday. So please tune into that. I'm also going to plug the partner panel, because I do think that it was a really, really cool thing. So please go either watch the VOD on Bearded's channel or check it out on Windew's channel when he puts it out, because again, I think Arma as a whole addressed a lot of really cool things, and even though I asked, I guess, some gotcha questions, the rest of the panel was really interesting, and he's a fun guy. So please go give that a watch, and follow me on Twitter. I would love to interact with you guys more on Twitter, and we also all have Discords, so there you go. That's my plug. Thank you, Arma, for being a good sport. I appreciate your apology on not trying to come across as a dick. I figured you weren't intending to, but it was there anyway. So thanks for being here, though, brother. Appreciate it.
Jelly?
So I'm going to start talking to you guys about my marketing class, Marketing 102, where I tell you how to be anti-community and towards all the kinds of money grabbing you can possibly do. Jalay Lenio is going to be the prime sponsor behind this marketing class, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be there, and I'm happy to be teaching you guys how to be scummier going forward. No, but nothing directly to plug. I think this show, right, partner panel is also super cool. And yeah, that's all I got, Mangoose.
I
What
like
about
how you went from crazy tinfoil guy to the fucking evil puppet master. I love
Oh,
it.
no, Mangoose. I've always been the evil puppet master. I just made you think that I was the tinfoil crazy guy.
Oh, classic misdirect, the old bait and switch.
Subverting expectations, Mangoose. This is the marketing term, okay?
I'm going to be doing a series of videos. It's going to be hosted by AMedkit. You've seen his name probably in the chat a few times. It's going to be AMedkit, JPie, and myself. And we're going to be talking about the heroes that haven't been added into Predecessor and ranking them based on how well they think they would fit into the current state of Predecessor. And I'm not sure when he's going to post those, but if you see AMedkit's name in there, and I'll post his channel in the description after this gets uploaded as a VOD, and you can go sub to him so you can check out those videos. But I think that is going to be it for this week. Thank you to everybody who came out for the live stream. We're getting a bigger turnout, a higher and higher chat rate. I'm absolutely loving it. Thank you, Viking Jedi, for convincing me to do these live. It's been a really good time, and I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, that is going to be it for this week. You guys have a good one.
Don't forget to like, thumbs up, subscribe.
Where's the button, Mangoose?
I'll put my thumb up in your ass.
Oh.